as you probably know by now, over the weekend we had the first, and I'm assuming only, hopefully only, remote duel YCS. And boy was it an event. If you want to see me cover the representation and top 32 breakdown of the European YCS, I made an entire video on that. It's the last thing I uploaded, so I'll probably have it up in the corner as well, so just be sure to go check that out. If you haven't already, I guess. We saw some pretty neat representation and a lot of stuff that people didn't expect, like no Sky Striker tops at least in the European one. I think one Sky Striker deck topped in the North American one. So I figured after King's Court and after the YCS, we have a bit more of a clear understanding of where some decks are going to stand. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you my competitive tier list for July 2021, post King's Court and post Remote Duel YCS. That was a cool transition, right? Right? I just realized my hands weren't on screen. Fuck. But anyways, as you see here, we do have our little tier list up, a little tier maker thing I threw together myself. As you may notice, compared to usual tier lists, including even on this channel, we don't have a kind of meh category. We don't have like an everything else category. And that's because I'm basing this solely on the represented in both top 32 and both actual representation. I'm basing both of all of these things in the tier list based on the representation of the European championship. The one Cyber Dragon is there because there was a Cyber Dragon top in the North American one, and then there was also an Orcus top in the North American one that I was unfortunately not fast enough to get, but it's Mech Knight Orcus, so it doesn't matter. That's like the worst version of Orcus. But anyways, I figured we might as well go ahead and go start into this, and this hurts. This really hurts, everybody, but to start off, we're putting Dino in the tier 2 category. I know, it hasn't been in the tier 2 category in forever. This is such a disappointment, it's such an awful revelation, but it's just kind of the facts that even though there was a top, Dinosaur is not what it used to be with only one miss. You gotta play things like Omega or Bujin Amaterasu, or if you're brain dead, Nemesis Keystone, in order to just recycle your one copy of miss because of how important it is, and none of those let you get it back to your hand, other than, you know, Keystone, but again, that's kind of just absolutely dog shit. But none of them let you get it back to your hand, which kind of just stops you from having protection in the later game. So if you don't kill, then they can't break your board like immediately, then you're kind of just fucked, because Dinosaurs were always kind of a deck that ran out of steam fairly quickly, especially back when Misk was originally at 1, but when it went to 3, and then we got things like Archosaur and all that, it was a lot better, but it still suffered from the resource thing. But now it went back to 1, and you're having to play around ways just to get it back, along with having to play the scraps, which, in my opinion, the scraps are great, but they end up clogging your hands a lot. Like, if you don't open Lost World, opening Scrap Raptor is awful, which a lot of people don't seem to understand. You don't want to see Raptor unless you absolutely have to. So, unfortunately, while I do love Dinosaur, it's gonna have to sit in tier 2 for now until either we get a new really cool card, the meta shifts up a bit, or, you know, Misk comes back. Man, this really hurts. But, tears aside, we're gonna go ahead and go on to the next deck. So this is Invoked right here. This counts for Dogmatica Invoked, Dogmatica Invoke Should All, pure Invoked if you're retarded, I don't know. But, Invoked, surprisingly, we actually didn't see as much representation, in like both the actual amount played or the top cut as I expected. I think there was only like one in the top cut. But this deck is really, really good, so I'm most likely going to put it in the tier 1.5 section. And the reason I'm not putting it in the tier 1 section, like, you know, I have been praising it lately, it's a really good deck, is that a lot of people are prepared for it now, and they have outs to things like Winda. Mechaba's like literally nothing. It's not that big, and also it's like a single negate, and they have to neg just to do it. The Dogmatica cards inherently aren't that like strong. Like, they're good, but like obviously they're not like insane. And they do die to just about every side decked or main decked hand trap right now. And so instead of putting them in tier 1, I am going to let them sit in a comfortable tier 1.5. Again, they are still a really good deck, but compared to some of the other things in this section, they are a bit lackluster as of late. So now we have Ignisters, or Atignister, whatever you want to call it. So interestingly enough, this saw more representation than even Dinosaur at the European YCS, which was really funny. However, the deck had no top cut representation, and the thing is about Atignister is it sits on a monster. It's the exact same as a Crusadia player trying to sit on an Avermax now. Yeah, it has cool protection, yeah, it's really big and beefy, but here's an Angry Turtle. There's really, like, a lot of ways you can just kind of out the Arrival. You can also just hand trap them into Oblivion before they can even get it out. They really can't do much else outside of that. So because of that, even though it did have a lot of representation compared to some of the other decks, I'm going to have to put Atignister in the Rogue category. If we did have an everything else category, I might, like, shift it around between there. I don't know, kind of like, it's a little bit of a floater. But unfortunately, I'm sorry, Atignister players, the deck isn't that great. And so next we move on to Cyber Dragons. Now, Cyber Dragon did have representation in the top cut of the North American YCS, but unfortunately it had none in the European one. And when you think about the meta right now, like, Cyber Dragon works great in metas where it's dominated by machine archetypes. You know, back in like the Eternal format in 2018, 2019, when it was Striker and Orcust and all them, everything was machines, so Cyber Dragon could just contact fuse the opponent's board away, and then bada bing bada boom. And right now, it's actually better than it has been lately, because Sky Striker is coming back into the meta. You have things like Divine Sky Arsenal AA Zeus. It's really funny, like, if you're playing in Cyber Dragon, you have a Zeus, and you see that special summon of the Cyber Dragon, you immediately just have to use a Zeus, because otherwise that Zeus is going bye-bye. And it probably will anyway, eventually, because, you know, it's Cyber Dragon. They're probably going to kill you. So, I'm not going to put it in tier 2. I don't think it's that good right now, but it is a lot better than it has been. So I will put it in a comfortable Rogue, just slightly under Atignister, strictly because more like representation than anything. Maybe we'll see more like Cyber Dragon Orcust builds like we used to, or maybe we'll get some more machine stuff that'll come out that'll let Cyber Dragon either utilize it or just use it in general. So next up, we have Altergeist, and it was really interesting because Altergeist had like a really, really large amount of representation in the like 1,800 players. I think there was like 41, if I recall correctly, which was more than Atignister, I'm pretty sure. And then obviously it's more than stuff like Dino, because Dino was in the others category. But to think that many people were playing Altergeist was kind of crazy, but unfortunately it didn't see top cut either. So I'm probably going to have to put Altergeist here. It's kind of just one of those lower control decks right now. I said this in my breakdown of the top 32 and the representation and stuff, but it's kind of one of those control decks right now that it's fine, but A, a lot of people are citing for back row and stuff, and B, it can't utilize its things in grave like Eldlich can, because people are citing for like back row and stuff. We have Lightning Storm, Harpies, all the stuff like that. Like Altergeist just kind of whimpers out, and they can't recover as well as Eldlich can by like banishing their things engrave or just activating them. Hell, even Paleo can at least use their things engrave. So until maybe they get like Pukri or something, I don't feel like the deck is just going to do too much. It does have access to things like Icy Dragon's Prison, and then after that you can trigger a Multi-Faker and stuff, and the deck is very affordable, but for now it's just going to have to sit as a lower tier control deck. And so next up we have Madolche, which is really, really cool to think about actually, because Madolche, if you looked at it on the representation chart, there was actually, there is no Madolche in the representation. It was all in the others category, and yet one Madolche player still managed to get in that top 32, which is kind of crazy, because Madolche has always been kind of one of those road decks like Paleo Frog that'll just like sneak a little like spot here now and then, but right now, Madolche is in a bit of a weird place because a lot of the current boards are really hard for it to break, even, you know, with something as crazy as Tiramisu, but it's still super cool to see that it was somehow able to make it into the top 32. I'm sorry, I kind of like stutter my words, but Madolche does have access to, again, things like Tiramisu, non-targeting shuffling removal that does out things like Dragoon. It outs let's see, what's it called? The Draconids for Drytron. And it's a very recursion-based deck. Like, you're always going to have something on board. So it's really good for matchups that aren't like Dinosaur, where, you know, they're going to keep doing damage regardless of you getting out more monsters. So it's good for, like, kind of stalling then. And then the next turn, you can, you can go for, like, a kill, because it's a pretty strong deck for OTKs. And if you want to see a deck profile, not the one that top, but if you want to see one in general, go ahead and check out the one on my channel from our good friend Javon. He worked really hard on it, and while he's not currently playing it right now, it's definitely something that he has as one of his top decks. And so it'd mean a lot if you went and checked out the video. It's almost at 1,000 views, which is really cool. But I'm probably going to put Madolche a very low tier 2. Not quite rogue, but not quite like dinosaur levels of tier 2. Like, it's kind of in that awkward spacing. That's why I wish there was like a 2.5, a 3, a 3.5, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of like floating back and forth. It's a very high rogue or a very low tier 2, but I'm going to be generous and put it in the tier 2 slot because we already have a good few decks in the rogue category. And Madolche, it does brick occasionally, and it can die hard to hand traps if it doesn't have the extender, but if you don't have a way to interrupt it, the deck is going to be very solid, especially the trap build. The trap build sits on things like Icy Dragon's Prison, Torrential Tribute, and then a bunch of other random things. I think Dino-Miscus as well. It has so many different things they can utilize, and while still having a one-card combo. Did I mention it's a one-card combo deck? You normal summon Magellan, and then you get like full ham from there. And as we can see from a deck like Prank Kids, one-card combos are very good. So yeah, for that reason, I'm definitely going to be putting Madolche in a nice tier 2 spot. Next up, we have Drytron. This is kind of like a given. This is going in our tier 1 category, our very top tier 1 category. Maybe like the second place of tier 1 once we get to like some of the other decks on here. But wow, Drytron is ridiculous. Honestly, I do not enjoy playing against it. I feel like cards like Herald of Ultimateness are just kind of broken. It abuses a lot of the older not once per turn fairy cards, you know, Ben 10, Eva, Herald of Orange Light, all of that stuff. Even Ultimateness, it's not a once per turn, and it negates summons, monster effects, spells and traps. It literally negates everything, while having like 3 orange lights in hand and 6 total fairies, including Eva, to search for more fairies. Diviner of the Herald is a ridiculous card from Lightning Overdrive. If you guys heard me rant about Dragon Link and how much I didn't like it, I feel like I still enjoy Dragon Link a lot more than I enjoy Drytron, because even if you do get the Dark Ruler against Drytron, they're still going to have several orange lights in hand, as well as Evas to pitch, to grab more, and if you can't kill them that turn, they're going to have like a Diviner of the Heralds in hand. They're going to normal summon it, they're going to go full ham, they're going to Draconids or access code you for game. It's a way too consistent deck. I really feel like it should have been addressed at least somehow on the list, so it wouldn't be this broken. It does die to things like Droll, but I don't really feel like that matters. It took up a nice chunk of the representation for both the entrance and the top cut. So, yeah, I feel like it kind of makes sense for Drytron to sit at tier 1. Don't you? So next up, we have Eldlich. And so Eldlich is kind of another, like weird thing for me, because right now, I really don't feel like back row-based control decks, or just back row-based decks in general, are that great. Specifically due to the fact that we have Harpies, we have Lightning Store, we have Evenly Matched, we have the Red Reboot, we have Twin Twisters, Cosmic Cyclone, MST. We have so many different ways of back row removal now compared to like easier monster removal, and you can just blow out their entirety of their back row and then just go for the kill. But if you don't have that removal, then you are going to be in a bit of a pinch, because Eldlich actually is a control deck with a big body, which was a cool thing about Altergeist because they had Hextia and stuff. But Eldlich is probably even scarier because it's also sending removal. I don't remember if it targets. I'm pretty sure it does. If it doesn't, that's literally just a free Dragoon out. It's literally even being seen in like Plunder Patrol. Plunder Patrol is playing a single copy of Golden Lord, which is hilarious to me, honestly. That's actually a thing, just because it's A, it's a light, and B, it's free removal that you can trigger off your other plunders. That's super cool. But Eldlich is a bit of a dicey thing for me, because again, I don't feel like it's insane like as it was anymore, because like, you know, the Zoo build kind of just died. They can sit on Zoo still, I guess, but I'm gonna put it in a nice, probably middle tier 2. Because I don't want to clog up the tier 1.5. I never like having too many things in the 1.5 category. And you're probably going to notice there's not a lot in the 1.5 or the 1 category, but there's probably going to be a lot in tier 2 and Rogue, because right now we're in a format that while there are some kind of crazy things with things like Drytron, it's still a format in which you can kind of just play anything you really want, and you can still see success with it. So I'm going to put Eldlich in the tier 2 category, in the nice balanced middle. It's a very good strategy, but again, we do have a lot of back row removal, and their stuff doesn't always help being engraved. Especially because they might open mostly like Solemns, you know, the Paleo cards, Icy Dragon's Prison Skill Train, things like that, instead of opening their Eldlich cards. And also just Ash the Scarlet Sanguine 5-head. So Eldlich, while it's a great deck, definitely not tier 1 as it was anymore, but it's still a very solid choice nonetheless. So next up, we have Guru Control. So Guru Control, I just said, like, back row decks aren't really like the thing right now, but I will admit that Guru Control is probably in the higher spectrum of the Rogue category. And so I'm putting it below Atignister, but I'm definitely going to put it above Sidra and Altergeist. Because the thing is with Guru is that, if you think about it, Red Eye's Fusion says you cannot normal or special summon the turn that you activate it, right? But you can set. You can keep a card in hand for Dragoon. You can activate Hidden City, grab your Guru, you can set like 2 back row, activate the Red Eye's Fusion, get your Dragoon out, and then set a Guru. So, yeah, that's kind of a thing. So there are still kind of crazy things as well, like Fiendus and everything that the deck has. Guru in general, I wouldn't say it's a crazy card. It's still really cool because it can kind of just continuously loop itself. You have Hidden City, which is a really cool field spell, not just in effect, but also artwork. And then they can also play things like Icy Dragon's Prison. They can probably play Skill Drain too, depending at points or whatever. But again, they kind of just sit on Dragoon, which Eldlich doesn't tend to do as much. And then Altergeist, I don't think it really can. At least it doesn't benefit from it. And so sitting on some back row as well as a Dragoon and a I don't think Guru's a once per turn, so it's like a not once per turn flip as well. You know, that can kind of just end some people's turns. When I was in Yu-Gi-Oh! Day, I actually went against a Guru Control player, and he left me with 100 life points. I somehow managed to like scrape up a win. It was my first tournament with the scraps in my my deck, but woo, it was really close. Dragoon's a hell of a card, guys. And so I'm probably just going to keep Guru around here. I don't think it'll ever go up to like tier 1 to tier 2. I think it'll always be kind of one of those decks that sits in the everything else or the roguish category. But Rogue is definitely a nice spot for it, at least for now. Oh, Sky Striker. This was hilarious, and I'm very glad it turned out how it did. But in the European top 32, no Sky Striker. And I believe in the North American one, there was one Sky Striker. Yeah. No, this deck is not as great as everyone hyped it up to be. I don't want to put it in Rogue. I think I put it in Rogue in my last tier list. Maybe I even put it in everything else. I shit-talked that deck a lot in that last tier list. And I still don't feel like it's that great. So the thing is, like, even ignoring things like Imperial Order and Anti-Spell that a lot of people are already playing and stuff, that also works against other decks, not just Sky Striker, you have to think that Sky Striker in its prime, back, 3 engage, 3 multi-roll, all that stuff, it didn't have to deal with the 1 copy of Harpies, it didn't have to deal with the 3 Lightning Storm, or just the sheer amount of people setting that much back row removal. Half of my side deck alone is back row hate. I play like 3 evenly, a Reboot, Harpies, Twin, and Cosmic, and then a single Twin in the main. Like, there's so much different back row hate right now, and it's not like it's a deck like Eldlich that can kind of benefit at least from having some of its things engrave during the opponent's turn. And also, you have people playing Kaijus for things like Atignister, just Kaiju the Kagari, Shizuku, like Hayate, kinda, I guess, I don't know, Zeke, whatever. It's a really easy deck to out, honestly, especially compared to how it used to be. It's no longer in its glory days. I do feel like even if it had 3 engage, it would still be pretty power crept. It'd still be really good, don't get me wrong, if it had 3 engage. Engage is a hell of a card, but again, it is kind of power crept, just like Orcust. If it got Heart back, it'd be power crept. Thunder Dragon cannot get Colossus back. That'll not be power crept. Fuck you. But definitely, I'm going to have to put Sky Striker above Madolche, but below Eldlich. like, keep in mind we are kind of going off of the YCS results, but also this is kind of just based off personal opinion and just logic. Like, obviously, I don't feel like Sky Striker is as good as everyone was hyping it up to be, so, I'm putting it in tier 2, I'm sorry. Raye is not Bae, fuck you. Next up, we have Tri-Brigade, and this should go without saying, it had the most representation out of any deck. It took up like a third of this section almost, of representation, and then also it took up, I think, a third of the top 32 as well. Yeah, it had like 13 tops out of top 32, so definitely going to put Tri-Brigade as the #1 deck of the format. It is the deck to beat. I do feel like it is one of the most fair decks of the format. I feel like what Drytron does is a lot scarier, but Tri-Brigade does have a lot more ways of getting to its combos, and it dies a bit less of things like Droll. However, I feel like a nicely timed Lancia, hell, even in the standby, or even just on normal summon of a guy, is just kind of enough to, like, hit the deck significantly, if they don't have the Rescue Cat at least. Speaking of which, Konami, give us a Rescue Cat reprint. We didn't need Rescue Rabbit in King's Court, we needed Rescue Cat. Like, I spent $7 on a heavily played fucking Rescue Cat the other day. It was insane. Please, Konami. But Tri-Brigade, again, is definitely the deck to beat. Lancia does kind of do it in a little bit, and then also if you like Imperm or Veiler or Ash the Rescue Cat, you know, they kind of lose their normal summon there. They kind of have to have the Fractal to get the Karis, or just hard open the Karis, Tenki, you know, things like that. It can play Gamma, though, which is the scary thing, so be careful of Lancia and the standby. Always try to do it on summon, and like Ash and things like that, you know, maybe hitting the Tenki. Don't try to hit the Tenki, hit something else. So I'm definitely putting Tri-Brigade as the top, like, #1 deck of the format. Very closely rivaled by Drytron, but considering it did win the YCS, and also it took up, like, over a third of the top 32, yeah, Tri-Brigade's not going anywhere anytime soon as the top deck. So next up, we have Virtual World. So this is another really interesting thing for me, because Virtual World, while what it does in itself isn't that intimidating, most end wars are usually like Crystal Wing, Chuchi, and maybe like a Dragoon. The thing is, it's not what the deck does, it's what it can do, because you gotta think that Virtual World is a deck that can play a variety of different floodgates. It can play Zombie World, it can play There Can Be Only One, it can play Skill Drain even if they need to. Oh yeah, and then they can also leave a Shen on board, which is kind of hell for a lot of decks right now. Maybe not something like Dinosaur or Eldlich, but definitely things like Tri-Brigade, you know, things like Drytron as well. Definitely very scary for decks like those. So I want to put it in tier 1, but I also want to put it in tier 1.5. I'm probably going to make it more of a floater like Madolche was. I'm going to put it above Dogmatica, Invoke, Shaddoll, or just Invoked variants in general. But I'm putting it below things like Tri-Brigade and Drytron, because I feel like the gap between Drytron and Virtual World is greater than the gap between Invoked and Virtual World. So Virtual World is a really cool deck right now. A lot of really nice things it can do with floodgates and everything. It can play a good amount of hand traps, but unfortunately what it does without those floodgates and hand traps is not too crazy, so it's better in games 2 and 3 when it can side things in. And then also, you know, it can brick at points. If you draw, like, only monsters that are, like, high level, then yeah, that's kind of a yikes. But Virtual World is still a really good deck. I'm definitely putting it in tier 1.5. It's probably, like I said, it's probably a floater between 1 and 1.5, more so in the 1.5 scale, but it's definitely probably one of the top decks of the format. And now we have Prank Kids. So here's the funny thing. When I was talking about Virtual World, I was talking about things like floodgates, like There Can Be Only One, and a bunch of hand traps. And while Virtual World does do that kind of stuff great, Prank Kids just does it better. Prank Kids are, it's a kind of like Virtual World in the sense that it's mostly like floodgate based and hand trap based, because what it does on its own isn't that crazy. You know, double Regeki isn't like the scariest thing in the world, especially when it does die to a Kaiju or a Twin Twister in the standby. But the thing is, Virtual World doesn't really have any one-card combo. Everything in Virtual World is kind of like 2-card combos, and it's much easier to brick than in Prank Kids, because in Prank Kids you have, like, what, 16 starters. Make that like 17 if you open like 1-for-1 and fucking a hand trap. Like, you can literally open one monster, right? And then like there can be only a skill drain, and then 2 floodgates, and you're really just set. Like, you're or no, not floodgates, I'm sorry, but hand traps, but you're really scary for your opponent. Less so because of the prank kid stuff, but more so because of the floodgates and the hand traps and everything like that. Granted, a hand like that would die to Ash, but that's why prank kid's place is a thing. But yeah, it's really scary as a deck. 1-card combos are always scary, hence why I said Madolche is kind of more tier 2 than Rogue, because 1-card combos are 1-card combos. Like, you really can't deny that. But, you know, maybe if the deck didn't die as easy to, like, Butler getting Kaiju'd or, like, hand traps or something, it could be above Drytron even, which, you know, probably not, but still. Yeah, like, Prank Kids is definitely a really cool deck, especially in time, you know, of course, burn for 500, gain 1,000, ooh, all that kind of stuff. You can just keep doing that every turn. So yeah, Prank Kids, definitely a scary deck, and I'd like to say it's on the lower end of the tier 1 spectrum. Next up, we have an interesting choice, because I don't believe this deck saw a top in either of the top 32s of Europe and North America, but the thing is, Phantom Knights, I'm probably going to put in the tier 1.5 category in between Virtual World and Invoked, because here's the thing about this YCS. It didn't include King's Court. King's Court was not legal because it literally came out like 2 or 3 days before the YCS started, so, you know, obviously that wouldn't be fair, but this tier list is both for King's Court and for the YCS, so we're looking at standings and we're looking at new items and things. So, Utopia Draco Future, whatever it's called, F-Zero, is a pretty nutty card, and Phantom Knights before was already a super cool deck. I literally sat there after hand trapping a Phantom Knights player and watched as he ended up making like a Dark Requiem with 3 materials, a Dragoon, I think maybe Appaloosa 2 Fog Blades, another like rank 4 or something. Like, he had like a lot of stuff, and that was after I ended up like ashing him, I'm pretty sure. So very scary deck, not to mention now you can add on to that the Utopia Draco Future, or Utopic Draco Future, whatever it's called, who cares. All you need to know is it's a really good card, and it's definitely going to put Phantom Knight even higher than it already was. I'd like to say it was a lower tier 2 deck. Now it's more of like a mid tier 1.5 deck, because it's not a linear combo deck either, so like you can kind of make any hand work really, so it's not like you have to rely on drawing a certain starter or anything. So definitely I'm putting Phantom Knights in the middle of the tier 1.5 category for now. Next up we have Dragon Link, and so like Dragon did absolutely garbage at in both events, but I still want to say because of the Dragoonity cards it can still do something, so I'm gonna put it between Eldlich and Sky Striker. Like, I don't know, man. It's kind of weird because I haven't seen dragons do anything since the LP and Striker hit, but I do know it can do things. Like I said, I was playing against Dragoonity, Dragon Link, I drolled them, and literally the only thing that changed was I didn't get a Morphage Electro Read, and he didn't even have to go into LP if he didn't want to, because they just got him a Goliath, so, you know, I just wouldn't have gotten Goliath as well, but he still would have had several negates, and like I said, that was through droll and everything as well. They do have the Heretic Dragon of a Tum, things like that, so I do believe it can do things, but people are still trying a bit too hard to work with the rockets. Just move on to Dragoonity, guys. Like, Remus is literally a 1-card combo. I don't know what you're doing. So, yeah, I'll definitely let it kind of sit here for now. I don't know. Maybe it'll do more things in the future. Maybe it'll do worse things in the future. Who knows? Who cares? It's dragons. They're always going to do something. So, for now, it's going to be in the middle of tier 2, I guess. And now we have Salamangreat. So, Salad is also interesting for me because I haven't seen what it can really do since coming back, because I haven't played against it yet. I watched a little bit of it playing against some other people at my local store, but you gotta think, compared to Sky Striker getting almost no, like, even unrelated support since getting the Engage hit, you know, Salad has access to a lot of new Cybers cards, and did I mention that access code can attack multiple times if you use an update jammer to make it? yeah, Cybers. So I'm definitely thinking it's going to be better than Sky Striker, and I'm inclined to say that I think it got like 2 top cuts actually compared to the 1 top cut that Dragon might have gotten. I don't remember. I'm going to put Salad above Dragon Link. And it might sound really weird, but I do believe that Mirage Stalio coming back was really, really good for the deck because it is an extra body on board. You can much more easily OTK. Going first, I actually feel like is weaker for the deck because it can sit on things like a Sunlight Wolf, a Rage, and a Aurora like it used to. But again, people are playing Kaijus for things like Atignister, for things like Sky Striker. If you Kaiju the Sunlight Wolf while they have no other links on board, they don't have access to their traps at all. So you can kind of just blow out their backs there. But when it does have a nice board setup and you don't have the out, it can be a bit obnoxious. Hence why, you know, Salad in its time when it was the top deck was a lot like Tri-Brigade. A lot of representation, and what it did was fair, but it was very consistent at what it did. So definitely Salad is like kind of just older Tri-Brigade really, but with, in my opinion, better OTK potential because again, not only are you getting pops with access code, you're also getting multiple attacks because of things like Update Jammer, effectively turning it into a bigger Boral Sword that can also nuke the field, because Update Jammer is like a light or a dark. You got your fire things engraved, that's at least 2 pops. If you use transcode at all, that's another thing, that's another pop. So definitely Salad is a really good deck right now compared to what it used to be. I'm inclined to say it's better than Madolche, Sky Striker, and Dragon Link. I almost said Dragoonity Link. What's the difference really at this point? But yeah, I do believe that's the tier list. Here it is, a bit bigger, a bit more like blimped up. It might look like a little bit weird, but you know, I can't like properly size it to 1080p, so you're just gonna have to deal with the Aurora Borealis in the background a little bit longer. But it's not that clear, but you can definitely see each thing in particular. If you want to take like a picture of it, you know, something like that. And let me strike a pose for you as well, like whatever. But yeah, that's going to be my tier list for the July 2021 and maybe even the August 2021 format, unless Dawn of Majesty or like some other things shake things up, because that is when Dawn of Majesty comes out, right? Early August for us. So that'll be interesting if it actually does end up doing something. But I'm not too sure yet. Burst of Destiny is definitely going to be the better set. So, I don't know. But again, like, that's just all my opinion for this tier list. A little bit based on statistics of the YCS breakdown. Wow, I just realized this video is 37 minutes. I am so sorry, but yeah, so that's gonna have to do it for the video. If you liked it, please try to hit the like button. This helps put this video and the channel into the YouTube recommended. And if you like this content and you want to see more like it, like the rest of my YouTubing content, maybe my last tier list, definitely check out my YCS top 32 breakdown for the European Duel YCS. That'd be awesome. I appreciate each and every single view. Yeah, if you did enjoy it and you want to see more stuff like it, perhaps consider subscribing, because we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers by next year if we can. And yeah, once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.